Hey, Gator Nation, welcome back to an all new episode of the Respect Our Decision podcast. Guys, this is a very special episode. This week, we're going to do our season preview. We got a special guest this week, Daniel from the Gator Truth podcast. Daniel, thank you for joining us tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me, Hirsch and guys. I think it's going to be a good time.
Yes, sir. As always, guys, as Daniel already mentioned, I'm your host, Hirsch. With me, as always, my great co host, CJ the Man McCann.
What is up, guys?
And the always super hype man, Wes.
12-0, baby.
Oh my God. He's in rare season form, man. He's in rare preseason form. We're going to get to it all tonight, guys. We're going to talk about this schedule. Is it as hard as everyone makes it out to be? What are our general expectations for this season? What are some must-win games on the schedule? Our opinions, obviously. And guys, before we get into it, always remember, these are our opinions. They don't have to be the same as your opinions. If you have a different opinion, that's what makes us all fans and what makes us unique. It's cool. But hey, drop your record prediction for the season in the comments below, guys. We look forward to seeing what each and every one of you think the Gators will turn out this season. So if you're doing that, you've already come this far. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, guys. Drop a like on the video. Y'all doing a fantastic job hitting the like button the last 2 weeks on that. At 100 likes on the video, as always, is the goal. And hit that notification bell, guys, so we get notifications each time we drop new content. And during the season, man, we could be doing the Raw Reaction Show. We could be doing Pod of the People Show. We could be getting some commitments. We got some visitors coming the first week of the season. We're going to preview all that next week. This is solely about talking about the entire season and our expectations with it. So before we get going, guys, as always, if you're able to, go check out our friends at Florida Victorious. Use our code DECISION. Save 20% off of your first month and help sponsor and, get us some great Gator athletes and recruits and all of that fun jazz. Y'all know how it works. All right, boys. It's almost here, man. We're really feeling it now. Our buddies to the west have made their way on over to Ireland. Hopefully they don't accost Kirk Herbstreit while they're over there. Safe travels to the Ramblin' Wreck and the Knolls as they get ready to open the season in Ireland. But we'll worry about them at the end of the season, guys. Let's get to the Florida Gator season. We start out, as everyone knows, man, maybe the hottest game in the land that opening week. It's there's a lot of big games, but the Miami-Florida hate is real, and we're going to start it off with a boom in the swamp against Miami. And I'm really interested to get into that real quick first before we go down the line here. Is there any doubt that this game feels like an absolute must-win on all fronts? Daniel, what do you think?
Oh, I do believe it's an absolute win. Two third-year coaches in the swamp. You got the home field advantage. You've had the same, players to recruit, the same transfer portals, the same ability to build up your team and coach up your guys. With that home field advantage, I feel it is a must win for Florida to come and show we're in the right direction. And we did a much better job, head coach selection in 2022 than Miami did with Mario Cristobal.
There's no arguing it. CJ, what's your feeling about this game? I mean, we've talked about it several times.
It certainly feels like a must-win for Florida. We can talk about it all day. There's still 11 more games left on the schedule. So if you do lose, it maybe isn't the end of the world, but it just feels like it is. It feels like this game is going to set the tempo for how the rest of the season goes. And maybe not. I mean, we thought that was going to happen when we beat Utah in 22. You come in there in big game and you look really good and you think, oh, wow, okay, we're so much better, so much further ahead. And the wheels kind of came off and towards the middle and the end of the season. So there would be a great way. It's a good jumping off point. If Florida gets a big win against Miami, you got a sure thing win against Samford. So you start the season 2-0. So that would be really good for us. It helps in recruiting a lot because we know that most of our recruiting battles have been, for better or worse, against Miami. At least then it gives you a selling point where Miami is throwing gobs of cash at them. At least then you can say, well, we beat them. So, you can go play for them if you want to. But at the end of the day, when it lined up on the field, we beat them. So I think that it feels like a must win on multiple different fronts. Is it absolutely a must win? Maybe not. Like I said, you still have 11 games. The season's still got to be played. But it would be a good shot in the arm to a program that could really use a big rivalry win, where they've been kind of sparse for the last 3 seasons.
All right, Wes, I saved you for last because you're about to, this time next week you'll be prepping to make that trip from South Carolina down to the swamp, man. What are your expectations out of this game?
My expectation is for Florida to win the game. But to your original question, it depends on who you ask. If you ask the negative fan base that's have negative feelings towards Napier, it is a must win. If you ask the people that's probably inside the building, they want to win, but they don't see it as a must win. To CJ's point, if you look at the last 2 years when we've lost at Utah and looked horrible against Utah, we thought the season was over at that point. But then we railed off a whole bunch of wins and had it trend into, oh, we might be able to make a bowl. We might be end up getting 7-8 wins. And, of course, unfortunately, we had some games we probably should have won. Arkansas. I'm not going down that long path again. But, it's some games that we probably should have won. But we flipped the script after losing to Utah. But then we won the year before. And then we wet the bed against Kentucky coming up. So it's a springboard, as CJ said. But it depends on who you ask. Is this a big game or not? For the fans, especially the Twitter crowd that can troll and troll Miami over and over and over again, it's a big game for them because they want to troll as a rivalry. And they want to be able to talk trash. But to people who have the big picture, the team can recover. You have enough more games on the schedule to come back, possibly make a run at the playoff if so be it, because of the big names on your schedule. So it's not like a must win in that sense.
I'm gonna tell you now. I've said it for weeks now, probably months. I think it absolutely is a must win for multiple reasons. One, and maybe the most important, is the pressure is already there. If you lose this game, the noise in the system is going to get extremely loud really fast. And I know there's all this talk about the players are bought in and everybody's locked in and all of that. And that's all good and well right now. And I truly believe that, having talked to, I've talked to people that are around the players. I've talked to a father of one of the players and had some really good conversations about that. And everyone says the same thing. This team is locked in. And that's all good and well before week 1. But if you lose this game, those guys are going to get trash talk because these are kids that have played against each other in high school. We know how that works from our rivalry with Florida State. The next morning, they're going to wake up to, you already mentioned the Twitter sphere and all of that, and that's all good and well. But then, the national media, the local media, all of them are going to say, is this job too big for Billy? Is he able to handle the pressure? If you can't beat an ACC team in your stadium, how are you going to compete week in and week out in the SEC against the teams you have to beat?
Do you think how we lose matters? If we lose on a last-second drive field goal, 27, 26.
I mean, it's always better than getting blown out. I mean, if you get blown out, I don't even want to think
I guess
about
what I mean is, what if the team looks like, to your eyes, like, oh, we look good, like you know what I mean?
And that it all can be considered, but that also can make the letdown even more emotionally if you lose a game like that.
I'll play devil's advocate here and say, though, the national media is really high on Miami. And we've seen this before, and Miami comes out and they wet the bed, and they're not as good as they were projected. But this could flip on its head if Miami is as good as they are projected. If Miami is a top 4 team in the playoffs, like some people are projecting, they expect them to win the ACC. Then if that's the case, if Miami is really that good and you lose that game and you can rebound within the last 11 games, we'll look back and say, okay, well, we lost to a really good Miami team. Because as much pressure as there is on Florida, there's pretty much the same pressure on Miami to win this game, because we're mirror images of each other right now. I mean, these programs are at the same exact point now. And I think that Miami fans, they don't want to admit that, up front. But if they lose this game, they're liable to come off the rails just like we would.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think that there's just a lot of pressure on both sides. Pressure makes diamonds, but it also busts pipes. So we've got to see where we're at. This is just a really good measuring stick for both of the programs. But like I said, if you rattle off 5 or 6 wins after you lose this game, we have a different opinion. So it's hard to say, yeah, this is it for me, just because we've got the entire season left. And I don't know how good Miami is or isn't, because like I said, you can't go off of what the national media's opinion of Miami is, because they've been wrong about Miami for 5 or 6 years in a row.
Yeah.
Go
I'll
ahead.
step in. Like, I get the devil's advocate on the, if we lose close, or Miami might be great and lose. And I agree with that if we, rebound. But I would also say on the opposite side of that, as far as if you're Florida here, lose. Anyways, sorry.
He'll be back. Don't worry.
Yeah. Anyways, with Miami, if you lose that game close, because I want to go back to that point, how many games have we lost close because we haven't been able to kill it? So I think that kind of, feeds more into, I guess, some of the negativity. Now, Miami may end up being a 10-11 win team. I completely agree. If you lose close to a playoff contender, that looks good. But I know I also was frustrated in 2021 when we took Alabama to the limit at home. And I'm like, when are moral victories enough? And one other thing for this game for me is also, we lost at home our last game to FSU. And if we lose our first game, now we've lost FSU and Miami back to back at home. We're 1-8 in rivalry games under Billy Napier.
And we're
and
on
I
a
think that
6-game
factors
losing
in.
streak.
Yes. So, I mean, I completely agree with we can still turn it around, but I also see why there's so much pressure on this game, I guess, is one way you can put it, for I must win, I guess, being the term we're using.
And all of these are valid points. And I don't want to go too down the road negative here, because a lot of people are gonna be like, why are y'all thinking we're gonna lose? We're not saying that.
No.
We're playing all viable options into the machine here, because this game does have such a huge impact possibly on the rest of the season. And that's why specifically I wanted to really deep dive into the Miami game, because of it sets the tone. You want to come out the gate and set the tone. This will be the barometer of, we keep hearing how bought in these kids are and all that. And Billy Napier just needs to get his guys. Well, now he's got his guys, and they're supposedly 100% bought in. And this is the tightest group he's had. All right, the stage is set. Show us. That's all we're asking. Go out and show us. And then, then we'll go on from there after that. We're not going to go too much more into it, because next week we'll probably preview Miami in our episode and break it down a little more. But it's fascinating how much this very first game weighs when you go into this, what has already been deemed the hardest schedule maybe in the history of all of football and yada yada. I don't know if y'all have heard it or not, but it's a really hard schedule.
Maybe.
So anyway, I'm going to kind of group the next 3 games, and we can kind of kick those around, because obviously for 3 of the first 4 are at home. And then we have Texas A&M comes to town, new coach, Mike Eccles. A lot of roster turnover there. Then we turn around and travel to Mississippi State, new coach there. And then we have UCF come into town, and UCF, we know how that goes. I mean, everybody knows the supposed lore of UCF, and they're really the home of misfit transfers and things of that nature. So I don't think they've ever got the same roster from one year to the next. So, Daniel, I'll start with you again. You look at these 3 games. Honestly, I mean, is there any excuse really to lose any of these games?
Oh, I know why you asked me this question, but I'm on the no, you don't lose these games. Mike Elko, first SEC game, and it's an away game in the swamp. New coach, a lot of his defense or one of his defensive coaches was one we let go. One one and Jay Bateman is defensive coordinator. Of course, Mike Elko, a defensive guy, did come over. I do expect a talented A&M team, but if you're at home and it's our first road game, a lot how we feel the home field advantage gives us an advantage over Miami. I feel the same thing with game 3 against A&M as they're still figuring out. If this game were week 9 or 10, I think there's more of, I guess you could say, an excuse there, but in week 3, I don't think there is. On the road,
before you go any farther, sorry fans, I skipped past Samford. I think that pretty much speaks for itself.
Yes,
Dan Mullen isn't on his way out the door as we play Samford. We should easily have been won this game and hopefully get to see a lot of DJ Lagway and company in that game. Sorry for that. I had scrolled right past him on my little schedule here because I'm really not worried of Samford of all the teams on our schedule.
You were good.
Go ahead.
I thought you did it on purpose. You were good. We ignore that game.
No, somebody's going to call me out if I don't make a correction, and I'm just saying. I'm not spending any time analyzing Samford on this schedule. Go ahead.
Dan. No, that's fine. I personally, as you're going through, thought you're like, oh yeah, we're not worrying about that. All right, the next 3. So I was thinking you had thrown in.
Yeah,
Samford,
I had scrolled past it because I'm not really trying to spend a whole lot of airtime on Samford.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're not spending a whole lot of game time on Samford either.
No, hopefully Samford turns out to be like McNeese last year, where it's a nice, just good night to watch the teams. But yeah, for A&M, again, since it's early, since they're replacing a lot, and they've lost 2 of their big recruits from 2022, and Evan Stewart, Walter Nolan, who have transferred out, lost, I believe it was their top 2 running back production wise from last year. Maybe it's top 2 receivers. I don't have my notes in front of me, but I think they'll still be getting things together. As far as Mississippi State, it is on the road in a place where we've had trouble throughout the years. I mean, even in 2009 with that great team, we had a little bit of struggle session in Starkville. But with that said, Jeff Levy, first year, can't lose to a first-year coach, especially one at a school who's had 3 head coaches in 3 years. Unfortunately, Mike Leach passes away. Last year didn't really work out for him, so they made a quick switch to Jeff Levy, who I do really respect. And I think in a year or 2, he's going to have that machine rolling in Starkville and be a dangerous team, much like Mike Leach had it. But again, first year, week 4, I do think that's a game in year 3 that you do take care of, even on the road, with all the talent that we've accumulated. And if it's the tightest thing, UCF last year, 6-7 team, barely better record than us. It's in the swamp. We have that advantage. We, are talking about, we had all this youth last year. Now it's got to pay off. They did bring in KJ Jefferson, but if they ended up bringing a better portal class that helps them jump higher than us, that is a reason for concern. And I don't say that's going to happen. I'm just saying that's why we should beat UCF and not really be worried about it, is because if we were about equal last year record wise and they had a much easier schedule and we played all this youth who are, this year developed, ready to go, that's a game with the swamp in the background that we should be able to win by, 10, 17 points. But I shouldn't say that because I know we're going to get UCF people in the comments, but maybe we want that.
Well, and you think this team would want to get a little bit of revenge against KJ Jefferson, too, for how that game ended last year against Arkansas, as we've already talked about. Not to mention, obviously, the in-state ish talking that already takes place, but that's a whole nother conversation. Wes, what's your expectation for these 3 games?
Yeah, I think we should be going, hopefully, into these games trying to be 5-0 at the end of them. Win the first 2 games. You talk about Miami and Sanford, and you go to these next 3. I'm with Daniel, especially with Texas A&M. To me, I think I told you this, Hersh. Me and you were just talking a couple weeks ago off air, that Texas A&M is one of the most important games for Napier because you have a new coach coming in from Duke, a lot of turnover. You have the game at home. It's important to show that you're established, your culture is established, and this guy's the first year. You can't lose that game. This is one you really. I know Miami and of course Stanford you can't lose, but you can't lose to Texas A&M either. This would be unreal having them to lose to a coach who's trying to do what you were supposed to be doing 2 years ago, and he's coming on the road in that environment. Hopefully, we're have the winds rolling and we good. So that to me is one of the most important games on the schedule. Hopefully, we pull that out. Then you have who am I missing? Is it Kentucky next?
No, no,
Not
no, no.
Kentucky.
Mississippi State at
Mississippi
Mississippi
State,
State, and then
same
UCF.
deal. We're more talented than Mississippi State. That should be a win. Like Daniel was saying, it is tough going down there for some. Even he wrote 2009. Even Mullins' first year down there, we won like Donovan Steiner had to make a sack at the end. It was I think Tony threw a touchdown on a wide receiver throw. It was a weird game with Felipe Franks and company. So it's always weird down there when we go down there and play. But it's a game we should win. They have a lot of turnover as well. Lost some of their good players as well. New coach coming in. This is why we were so optimistic about the schedule in its totality, because you have some new coaches coming in. Even though that's a road game, not a lot of talent, but the team that has more talent in Texas A&M, they have to come to your place. So hopefully we can pull that one out. And UCF is UCF. We know that's important as well. They were 670 in the Big 12. I mean, come on. The Big 12, they stepped up in class, thought they were with the big dogs, and they were 6-7 over there. Even though they're getting KJ Jefferson coming in to be their quarterback, that he's not a force multiplier like that. We talk about quarterbacks being force multipliers and uplifting the guys around. They don't have the guys to uplift, in my opinion. They might have a good player or two, but they don't have a squad like that where he can uplift them and have them going 11-1, 12-1, and I'm assuming not 12-1, 11-1, 10-2 in the Big 12. So that's a game we should win. And I have us, even though we're not taking a tally, I have us at right then at 5-0. So yeah, we should sweep that.
Absolutely. CJ, your thoughts?
Yeah, this is the most important part of the schedule because the back half gets so. Oh, am I way too loud?
Yeah, you came in like a wrecking ball.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know what that was about, but no, it is the most important part of the schedule because the back half of the schedule is so much more difficult. You really need to get these games behind you and win. Against some teams that you really should beat now, because if you don't get ahead of this thing, we're talking like you need to start the season 5-1, 6-1 to really have a shot to finish really respectfully, because you should beat Texas A&M, you should beat UCF, you should beat Mississippi State. You can't afford to drop one of those in there. When it comes to Miami and Tennessee, you can afford to drop one. I think you can lump Texas A&M. I think Miami, Texas A&M, Tennessee. If you drop one of those games, it's okay, but you can only drop one of them, because otherwise you're going to have a really rough time trying to find some wins on that back half, because we saw it last year. We lost the game against Kentucky. You don't lose that game against Kentucky, a team that you should beat, and Arkansas as well, but that was still the back half of the schedule. You're talking about a different team, and we're having a different conversation this year than we are now that you did lose those games. So I think that Mississippi State is still in a massive transition, completely changing offenses for the third time, going from Mike Leach's air raid to trying to be a more traditional spread attack, to now with Jeff Lebby, he's going to have to do more of a, an Ole Miss kind of offense that they like to run, more of a multiple. And I think that they don't really have the guys in there to do that right now. I'm not super high on Blake Shapen playing quarterback for them. I think Parson might be their better option, but he's young. He's still got a lot to learn. And then of course Texas A&M, you've got a really good quarterback at Texas A&M, which is the one thing that I would worry about. Wegman is more than serviceable. He's a good quarterback. He's a top 10 SEC quarterback. But when you look at A&M on the other way, what else did they really have because of the transition, because of losing guys in the portal? You lose an Evan Stewart, that's hard to replace that kind of production from a guy that is that talented. It would be like us losing Eugene Wilson. You're losing a guy that is a game changer. So that's a game at home you should definitely win. And then, of course, UCF. UCF has really just pieced together a football team with a bunch of cast-offs, a bunch of guys that were second or third on a depth chart at a bigger school like an Alabama, like a Georgia, like an Arkansas, an Auburn, or whoever, and they're trying to win that way. I think they make some noise in the Big 12, but you're talking about a team that went 6-7 the year prior. We know what Gus Malzahn is at this point as a coach. We've seen it at Auburn. We've got enough, big enough sample size. He didn't have a good time when he came here as the head coach. When he was at Auburn, the swamp was a lot for him to overcome there. KJ Jefferson has regressed significantly compared to where he was a few seasons ago. Even then, looking at him last year, KJ Jefferson really isn't the reason Florida lost to Arkansas. So he is he's a good quarterback. He's an experienced guy. He's not going to make a ton of mistakes, but he's not a guy that you look at as like, he's not Cam Newton. He's not, any of those kind of really big game breaker. He's not Jordan Travis or, guys that are really accomplished quarterbacks. He's a solid quarterback. He's going to be good for UCF. Like I said, they make some noise in the Big 12, but again, at home, that's a team you should beat. In a perfect world, we're undefeated at this point. I think that's what we all want, because if you are undefeated after these 5 games, everything's still available for you on the table. I mean, you're looking at, of course, a tough Tennessee game, and we'll talk about in a minute, et cetera, et cetera. But these are really 5 important games that if you can get out ahead of, at worst, you have to go 4-1. But I think that we have what it takes to go 5-0 and get started, because it's going to be super important to go 5-0 or at least 4-1 this early, because there aren't a lot of wins on that back half of that schedule. As it sits right now, things can obviously change. Teams could fall off. We see it every year. We could be talking about Florida have a super easy schedule in December as opposed, because things happen. College football is fluid. It changes. So, no, I think that, again, we really need to get out in front of the schedule really bad. And these are definitely games that are extremely winnable for us.
Yeah. We've talked about this schedule, obviously, ad nauseum. And the one thing that we have constantly said is we got to get out in front of it. If Billy Napier is to keep his job this year, and look, say what you want, there's no reason he shouldn't be able to. The schedule sets up early, like we keep saying here, for some very winnable games. You can go on a streak here. Texas A&M, it's not like they have two. They play McNeese the week before they play us, but they play Notre Dame the first weekend of the season. So they're going to take some beating early too. So like you said, that's a lot of shuffling to do, and we've seen it a lot with new coaches. They come in, guys are learning systems, new systems. Where do I fit in? All of that. So you've got that 2 weeks in a row with Texas A&M. Plus, I know it's hot in Texas. Don't get me wrong, but it's still early September in Gainesville. It's the humidity matters. I don't care what anybody says. It's a different animal. Mississippi State, like Daniel said, it's always a tough travel for us. It's supposed to be a noon game, which always sucks for us in a time zone change. We'll wake up probably in the third quarter and play good the second half. It's a Florida thing, just like we play UCF, and then we'll have trouble with KJ Jefferson because he's a mobile quarterback. And for some reason, it doesn't matter who our coach is. For the last 30 years, a mobile quarterback gives us absolute fits. But all things considered, I'm just saying this stuff just kind of as precursors. You have a very real shot to be 5-0 coming out of these 5 games. And it should be your absolute, obviously your goal is to win every game. But if you're looking at this schedule and saying we got to get ahead, you should be saying we're 5-0 heading to Knoxville. That is on our board of season goals. We're heading to Knoxville 5-0. Now, let's get into that. this game's tricky for me, man. I'm on the fence about it. Tennessee's got a pretty decent defense. Now, I know a lot of people their first thing out of their mouth is their quarterback hadn't played. He's got 150 passing yards, yada yada yada. The kid's super talented though. Let's just put that out there right now. And we know at 3:30 in the afternoon on that Saturday, and it could change, that Neyland's going to be a madhouse. Now, this is where Graham Mertz being in his second year really comes into play, and being a fifth-year guy and having command of the offense. Because if you have any chance to walk in and beat Tennessee at Neyland, this is it right here. You've got to have a guy that's composed, that knows his offense, that is confident that he can communicate to his guys and just hold it down. We watched Anthony Richardson go in there a couple years ago and claw and fight back and and played maybe his best game of that whole season. And we still came up short. So, but this is a team on our side that should be much better defensively, and you better be. And we got more depth, which is really going to come into handy because you know what Tennessee is going to bring to the table with that fast-paced offense. Daniel, what are your expectations with this Tennessee game?
Oh man, you said a lot. It's definitely. I've definitely said I think we should be 6-1 at worst going into Georgia, and the one I would be okay with is Tennessee. And I've also said it's kind of weird that I say that since we're like 17-2 against them in the last 19.
This is a different Tennessee, though, and people got to start realizing that. Like, they're putting some money out there now and doing some things.
For sure, but also Josh Heupel and that offense, that's if it gets going, and I think that's one thing that we did a good job last year is keeping it from getting going. But I don't think Joe Milton, is quite the quarterback, at least based on potential that Nico is. And also being at home versus away, I think will make a difference. And to be honest, we're only 2-2 in the last 4 trips to Neyland Stadium. So that part has also played a little bit over the last few years. I do know that Napier circles this game, and so hopefully that really helps out with it. But I could see just if this is a motivated Tennessee team to get revenge for last year, because you want to talk, we talked about the Miami game is a big split sometimes because we might snowball in a good way or a bad way. It'll be interesting to see depending on the result. Well, for Tennessee last year, they didn't have the season they thought they could have because of what we did in Gainesville. So I could see this being their big circle revenge game, because talking to Tennessee fans, Florida's the team they hate more than any other for the most part. So it'll be interesting. I think this is a game that's definitely winnable for us. I do think Graham Mertz, as a 5th-year starter, 6-year QB, will not be intimidated walking into Neyland at 100,000 strong, whether that game's at 3:30 or ends up kicking at 8. I really hope it kicks at 3:30. I tend to stay 2 hours away from Knoxville. I don't want to be getting the hotel at 3 a.m., but that's a different point. But yeah, no, I think it's a game that we definitely can win. I think if the defense has taken the step that sounds like they've taken, and then also with guys like Boone returning and experience being brought in, like Asa Turner in the secondary, Pup Howard at linebacker, I think this is a game we can win. However, it's one that if we lose on the road to what should be a really good Tennessee team, maybe not an elite Tennessee team, it's one that I can live with, where we've been saying games I don't think we should lose. This is one where I think we can win, but I'm not going to be like livid if we don't pull it off in Neyland.
CJ?
I hate Tennessee so much. So like, I just like, as far as like hated teams, Tennessee is way up there. So I hate to say this, but I think too, another thing that's getting lost in all this, we don't play them on the 3rd Saturday in September anymore.
I almost brought that up when you,
and believe it or not, that matters a lot, because even the Tennessee fans, they are over the moon. They don't have to play us that early in the season again. because of you've got a few more games under your belt. You've got some stuff figured out. Tennessee, a lot of their losses can be accredited to them getting going and us being probably at the best form that we're going to be for the whole season. We've had a lot of seasons where the early part of the year is the best Florida is going to be, and then we run into a Tennessee team that maybe is ascending. So that's going to play into it. You're playing at Neyland, tough place to play. It's a it's a hostile environment for our guys. Um, Two, this is going to ride on the back of how good is Nico, how much has he progressed. We've seen a lot of freshmen come in with a lot of hype, a lot of highly recruited guys that don't do as well in their first full time season as predicted. I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying it's a possibility. It's not a foregone conclusion that Nico is going to be a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, an All American, All SEC guy. We've got to see him grow, and that goes for the same as anybody. I can say the same for DJ Lagway. DJ Lagway hasn't played. We all love DJ Lagway. We all think DJ is going to be great. But at the end of the day, if we were in the same position, we'd be worried about the same things because you still have to grow and prove it. And I think that's one thing that I'm curious to see. Because if the things do go off the rails with Nico early, and he's not perfect, and he's a guy who's not, maybe we come into the game, he's thrown 10 touchdowns and 7 interceptions in the early part of the season, really still trying to grow and learn. Like, there's definitely potential there, and you're going to see it. But he's still a kid that's got to get acclimated to it. He's got some games on the schedule that they've got to work with. They've got to figure out that Tennessee's going to have to fight through early on. So I think that it's going to depend on where Nico is as a player. Um, I think that we've matched up talent wise okay with Tennessee. I think Tennessee is not super like uber talented. They're not Georgia. They're not Alabama. They've got some guys. They've got one of the best defensive ends in the country. They've got some dudes. They've got good wide receivers, and I'm not discounting them, but I'm not saying that Tennessee is going to just go in there and outmatch us. I think we can definitely play with them, but just being away from the swamp, it's definitely a game I could see us dropping. But again, if it's the only one we drop up to that point, I think we all can live with that. Now, if we go into that game with 2 losses, God forbid, then we're talking about a totally different situation. But if everything goes well and we're going in there 5-0, it's a game that you feel like you could win. But honestly, I think Tennessee is at a different point in their lifespan than we are, and I think that they're going to get us this year. But again, it's all going to weigh on the back of what they're going to do with their quarterback, how much he can grow, and how ready is he for this moment.
100% agree. Wes, what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I was going 5-0 up to this point. I'm with the guys though. People don't. I don't know if our fans realize that Tennessee's been kind of doing their thing over the last couple of years. They kind of had a setback last year, but we talked about the quarterback situation there. But he was the number 1 overall recruit for a reason. There's a lot of potential there. We don't know if he's going to live up to expectations, to CJ's point. And a lot of it depends on how well he's playing. But that offense is so quarterback friendly that I think he's going to excel in it. They do a lot of different things. It's exciting. They go deep. The kid has a big arm. He's just talented, and I'm fascinated and excited to see him in that sense, to see what kind of quarterback he becomes, because it's going to be a game. I hate Tennessee just as much as we all hate Tennessee. So I'm not going to wish any harm against the kid. I just don't want him to beat us. But I wanted to know if the hype is real. Is what everybody said when him coming out of his recruiting class, is how good he was going to be, the potential he had. How could Tennessee get this kid? I want to see if it's real. But if we lose, I wouldn't be disappointed because of the 5-0. But I would pick us. We're 5-0. I'm picking us to win that game no matter what. But the same thing we were saying about Texas A&M and coming in UCF and Miami, and these games being at the Swamp, they have that same. I don't know if fans have been to Neyland, but it is super loud. They get rowdy. They hate us. They're going to be up and excited, especially if they have a good record in that game. If it's 5-0 versus 5-0, a 5-0 versus 5-0 is going to be crazy, a crazy environment, and we're going to have to be ready. But to what Daniel was saying earlier, I'm not. It's one of those games. I'm not going to pick, even though Tennessee has beaten us. I didn't realize this stat. There were 2-2 last two trips there. I can't pick them to beat us till they beat us consistently. We have that over them for some reason. Even the games with, I think it was Treon Harris and somebody else, was like games they were supposed to win with Felipe Franks, Hail Mary, and Will Greer's to Antonio Galloway. Games they should have won. We're here now. We just somehow, I know some of them were at home, so that's too, we were playing home, but I'm not scared of Tennessee. I don't fear them at all. And some way, I feel like we'll find a way to win it, even if we both come into that game 5-0.
Yeah, and I want to add, while you're talking about, we found ways to win that are ridiculous against Tennessee. I still have my video of the last I took in Neyland in 2022 of that last play. If the line blocks for half a second longer, we win that game, because if AR's not hit as he releases that ball, Justin Shorter is behind the defense, and that's a touchdown. I can tell you, that entire stadium, after we recovered that onside kick, was crapping themselves. And I was sitting next to a Tennessee fan who even was like, here we go again, every single time. And so this could be a year where we see something like that again. So I'm really excited for the Tennessee game. Hopefully my record in Knoxville improves.
Yeah, this is definitely the game that if it can happen, it will. Like Tennessee, us in Tennessee always has some legendary, ridiculous finish that usually benefits us. Jabbar Gaffney, shout out to you. It was a catch. I don't care what anyone says.
100%.
Look, if we're 5-0 going into this game, and for whatever reason we come out of Neyland with a loss, I'm not going to be upset about it. I mean, I'm going to be upset to an extent. Don't roast me, guys. I'm not going to be happy that we lost Tennessee.
Right.
But I'm going to say, look, this is kind of one I had chalked up to. If there was a game we were going to lose early, this is the one. A game we absolutely, and I'm going to put this up there with what I think about Miami, we 100% can't lose. I don't care what happens, is this Kentucky game that follows in the Swamp. You can't lose to Kentucky again. You can't, Billy Napier cannot come out of the Kentucky game 0-3 versus Kentucky. You cannot do it. You've got a first-year quarterback, and I know he was a talented high recruit, but he still hasn't started a game. And there's a reason for that, because he wasn't good enough to break through, that depth chart at Georgia. It is what it is. Is Kentucky going to have some talent? Yeah, sure. Stoops always gets the most out of what he has. But they're coming to the Swamp. Once again, you've got Graham Mertz, fifth-year quarterback, all of that great stuff in the Swamp. Everybody, that game, if that game is not circled on the calendar somewhere in the locker room as a revenge game, this is the year we send them back home old school style with, a 30-point loss, then something ain't being done right, because this is the game you're approaching that bye week and what we're going to call the stretch. This is where you have to get that one more W in that first stretch of games, where you can say, all right, we did our work on the first half before we get into what is essentially the second half. Daniel, I mean, I know you, and I'm sure everyone agrees that is absolutely got to be what happens with this game.
100%. By year 3, you need to be beating the teams that you're more talented than, and beating the teams that you're expected to beat. And Kentucky's one of those teams. For the second or third year in a row, they have a new offensive coordinator. They've got a new quarterback for the second year in a row. At some point, you just have to find a way to beat these teams, and especially at home and on homecoming. So throwing all that, you have to absolutely beat Kentucky. And that's really, really just what I have to say on that.
Yeah, there isn't a whole lot to mention here. I know the boys agree with that. Wes, you have any quick takes about the Kentucky game before we go on?
Yeah, I forgot the point against what Urban Meyer say, you have to beat your rivals. Kentucky's not a rival, but they see us as a rival, maybe a basketball thing, that they hate us. We might be their most important game on the schedule. To Daniel's point, this is going to show me that Stoops is just a better coach than you. I don't, especially if we lose that Tennessee game, then that means we're going to lose to Kentucky. That's 2 in a row. Then you're going to Georgia. That's 3 in a row right there. Got to win this game. It's important, and you have to show that you're a better coach than you can't be losing to Kentucky. To Dane's point, just not a lot need to be said about that.
There is no 3 years losing to Kentucky. You just, if you do that, you might as well start packing your luggage. CJ?
I think this is more of a must win than Miami. We got to beat Kentucky. This is getting ridiculous. It's affecting a lot more than what we see. It affects boosters when you lose to Vanderbilt and Kentucky because they expect you to beat those teams, and if you can't do that, they don't want to support the coach. So you got to beat Kentucky. It's flat out. There's no negotiating this one. You've got to beat Kentucky. We're tired of losing to Kentucky. This is not something we're accustomed to. You know, you beat them for 30 years in a row. Now you're on a skid where Mark Stoops has made this the Super Bowl for Kentucky. This is their most important game on the schedule. Now they feel like they are equal. They feel like they're on our level. They feel like they're the team that was the most competition for Georgia in the East, which is ridiculous. There is no way, no shape, no how where Kentucky needs to be on that level. We've got to beat them. We've got to stop playing around with this. We've got to take this game serious again and go and beat them like we should. If you can't do that now, I have serious doubts about, you know, where we're at as a program. That's at the end of this. I mean, end of the day, we could be 6-0 at this point. We could have beaten Tennessee, won all the way. If we lose to Kentucky, I'm going to be sick to my stomach because there is no way that we should lose to this Kentucky team. I'm tired of it. It can't happen. No more excuses. You cannot keep losing to Kentucky.
Yeah, you've got to bomb these guys. Like it's got to be, you've got to buy the following week. So you've got a little rest up time. You've got to put it all out on the table. And then if all things have gone well, I mean, if all things have gone perfect, obviously you're undefeated, you're 7-0 walking out of there, you know, yeah. But let's be realistic. My prediction is my expectation is honestly 6-1 out of that game going into the bye. Daniel, what's your thought? What's your expectation?
Oh, I agree with you. I think 6-1. You know, for every reason we mentioned, but although I don't fully agree, I do agree with the sentiment of you can only lose one between Miami, A&M, and Tennessee. Personally, you know how I feel about Miami and A&M, but still, I think 6-1. If it's your third year with everything we've talked about, you do that, especially since you've got all the buy-in, you've got all the experience with you, you've got a 6-year QB, and we've seen guys that were in their 6th year, 5th year starting, or even 6 year and less years starting recently do really well. You know, not to say you have to be Jaden Daniels well, but we've seen several others, and that's what I think we should expect. You know, high performance from the offense and a big step with his defense and Ron Robertson. 6-1, I don't think is, based on the front half of the schedule, a far stretch for an expectation.
CJ, what are you thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it. You know, 6-1 is where you need to be. You know, there's definitely a world where we're 5-2. 5-2 is not ideal because of who you play. I mean, we were 5-2 going into the bye last year, and we saw what happened once you hit that back half of the schedule. You understand how important it is to get out in front. Is 5-2 the end of the world? Maybe not, but it's not. It's not going to be indicative to our success. It's not going to. I don't know. It's just not gonna. It's not gonna be good for us. I'm not gonna feel very confident about where the team is with that back half of the schedule if we're anything less than 6-1. I mean, if we're even worse, God forbid, if we're 4-3, then I think that Napier should start looking on Zillow for houses at that point because it's just not. It's not going to end well.
Wes?
Yeah, I agree. The floor, to CJ's point, should be 5-2. The ceiling, you know how I'm feeling about it. The ceiling can be 7-0. But 6-1, I would be happy with 6-1. But the floor should be 5-2. 4-3, to CJ's point, Zillow. Because I mean, and then to CJ's point, you look at the back half of the schedule. If we lose those, if we 5-2, which is that floor that I see, is that means we probably lose to Miami and we lose to Tennessee, the two best teams in that first half of the stretch. That, and you think we're going to compete with the teams that are better than them in the second half? I don't see that happening. The thing for us that I like that the schedule in the beginning is kind of soft. It gives you time to build up, get confidence, get your swagger, iron some things out, and attack the last half of the schedule. So you want to be feeling good about yourself and doing well. So it's kind of a good thing that we have all those teams in the back half because you have the ability to gain confidence, get things ironed out, work with some things, and see who you guys are and see who you are as a team and what kind of identity you have at that point.
Let me add one other thing to what y'all are saying. If you are, God hope not, by any chance, you have lost 3 of those games, you're looking at maybe possibly having that Mullen McElwain their last campaigns where things go south really fast because at that point you're going to have guys going into business for themselves as far as protecting themselves and not giving it their all or saying I'm going to be out of here at the end of the season one way or another. This isn't for me. um you're going to have people, and unless these were 3 losses that were by 3 or 4 points, have you not, whatever, it would, if there's 3 losses at that point, I'd absolutely guarantee you're going to have some guys check out mentally. And we know where that goes from there, especially in this era now where they can say, you know what, I ain't worried about it because I'm going to hit the portal and be gone somewhere else next year. To hell with this. It sucks that mentality can exist, but it's where we are with the landscape now. So it's even more important to win these games for multiple reasons because you don't want this roster to start quitting and saying, you know what, I know where this is going to go because I know we ain't beating half these teams in the back half of the schedule. I know coach ain't going to be here. I've heard the whispers. I read Twitter. I read this. It could cause a very negative effect. So more reasons why you have to be ahead of this thing. All right. So now we get the bye week. We're rested up. Hopefully we're 5 and we're 6-1. We're going into play Jacksonville to play Georgia. Let's be honest. Do we think we're probably beating Georgia this year? Probably not. I'm not betting any money on it. I promise you that. This is the barometer. This is the real yardstick game for me, though. What have you built? Have you closed the gap? Obviously, we know Georgia's still signing top-notch recruiting classes, and we know what they do on the field. But are you hanging with Georgia for 4 quarters? Are you making them fight to win at the end of the game? Or are you within a touchdown with 5 minutes to go? Things of that nature. Now, granted, don't get me wrong, fans. I live in Georgia. I want to beat Georgia as much as anybody. But let's step back and be realistic here. This is the game that if anybody looks at and says this is a game that's probably an L. But there's a real chance to show what you've built in this game. Daniel, what are your thoughts on the UGA game?
I completely agree with you. I mean, it's not one that we should expect to win. Now, that doesn't mean we can't be hoping for like a 2002, 2003 where Ron Zook goes into Jacksonville and upsets Mark Richt or stuff like that. I mean, definitely there have been times we've gone into Jacksonville. Heck, 2014 weren't expected to win with Will Muschamp basically halfway fired at that point. And, here we go and pull it off. So we're not saying that Florida's not capable of winning the game, but I do think it is a, measuring stick game. One thing that I have said, on Twitter or elsewhere is my feelings on the season, besides, a certain record, we can't be blown out once. That's one thing. We've been blown out multiple times each season leading up to this. And if you've built the team and with the seniority that you do have, the experience that you have, you should be able to at least keep this close. I mean, heck, Will Muschamp at South Carolina beat Kirby Smart in 2019. So there's always a chance to keep it close or, make something happen. And that's all I really ask, that we're not looking at the third quarter and we're down by multiple scores again. And then we're putting up 13 points and, we're pointing to, here's our point total for the year. And it's, skewed by 1 point because of garbage time points. But with that said, all I ask is that we compete. And if we compete, you never know when a mistake's going to happen. And you end up taking that game by hook or by crook. So that's all I ask is go out there, compete. If we win, awesome. If we don't, at least put the fear of Florida coming back into the Georgia fans' minds, and also put the idea in Florida fans that, hey, this is a game next year and the years after that we can win. And that's really all I feel about the trip to Jacksonville.
Wes, I mean, we know how you feel about Georgia on here. You pick them to lose every single week in the pick'ems. I mean, that's why you don't ever win. So
Yeah, that's gonna change. I'm gonna have my. I prayed about it. I thought about it a lot, and then I'm gonna do the right thing and say that until we beat them, until Billy Nate Peruzzi can beat them, I can't be doing this. I said I hate Tennessee, but as y'all can tell, as much as I pick Georgia to lose every week, because I'm gonna pick them to lose against Clemson week 1. I hate them the most. I hate Georgia more than I hate Florida State, then Miami, then Tennessee. I hate them. I hate their fans. I hate everything about them. I hate the Bulldog. I hate all of it. But to Daniel's point, he brought up a great point. I don't care if we're 7-0 at that point, 6-1. I need confidence going into next year with DJ Lagway that Napier is the guy. And to show me that you're the guy, you have to play on a neutral field with Kirby Smart and show me that this team is ready, that you can go in the portal, see after the season what your holes are, get some of those guys in the portal, whether it's offensive line, whether it's linebacker, whether it's D lineman, whatever it is, use it as free agency. You have a stud coming back next year. Have us thinking that we should be ranked in the top 15 next year, top 10 team with DJ and how this roster is turning out. We're gonna have guys coming back next year as well. We're gonna lose a couple of pieces, but we're gonna have some guys coming back. So that's why this season is important to keep those guys here. Because if he's gone, they're probably gone. We know how it is. It's gonna be free agency, like you talked about earlier, Hirsch. People are gonna be checked out, listening to phone calls. Hey, we're gonna get you. So it's important to keep these TJ Cersei's, the Kelby Collins, the Shamar James, because if he doesn't go to the draft, because I believe he's a rising junior, the Castells, these are your core key contributors, like athletes that are dudes that can be SEC first team, second, that can be on the list coming into next year. And this game is important to show me that, hey, the guys that you said that once you get your guys in here, they were going to be dudes. I saw that against Georgia. Georgia put it out. Beck made some throws down the stretch, and he just beat us. I hate to say ETN, maybe he made a couple runs. We know he's good. Maybe I know fans probably hate that he went to Georgia, but the kid can run. He can't pass block, but he can run, and we got to give him that. So it is what it is. So we have to show up in that game. It has to be close. It has to be going into the fourth quarter, like Daniel was saying. Like have Georgia fan like, damn, they might have something. They have DJ coming next year. They may be ready to compete with us. So that's how I feel about that game. But I will pick us to lose if we're 7-0 and they're 7-0, but I think they're gonna lose to Clemson. But that's neither here nor there.
Okay, CJ.
Yeah, no, just keep it close. Me and Ernest talk about all the time. We live in Georgia. I know how painful this is. Georgia was never a thought in my mind growing up because we just beat them. It wasn't even. You went to Jacksonville, we're going to beat Georgia. They might slip around and beat you once or twice, but it was, now everything's just flipped over. We're in our Ray Goff years, so we're trying to figure out,
Whew.
where we stand. You can't just go in and get mollywop. It just can't happen like that. At least, we talk about Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen lost those games, but at least we weren't getting embarrassed. It wasn't like Georgia was just killing us. We were at least in the game. We had reason to believe we could win. I feel like that's where we need to be at this year. I think, losing to Georgia 35-24 or something, they pull away late. I'll take that if that's where we can get. Now, I will say this: this is a Georgia team that's in the middle of kind of a transition. You don't have Bowers, you don't have McConkey. Those guys are gone. Those were their main offensive guys. So now they're relying on some guys. I know Delp is talented. They don't have Ra Thomas. They kick Ra off the team. So you lose another guy at wide receiver. They've got a lot to prove offensive wise. Carson Beck looked very good last year. Can he do that again this year? I tend to believe he can. I think that Georgia's recruited it well enough to really not worry about it. You kind of like look at like the Nick Saban Alabama teams where guys would leave and they just reload. So I think Georgia's there. But if you wanted to look at some bright spots and some hope, that's kind of what I look at. You don't have Brock Bowers, you don't have Lad McConkey. You got Carson Beck back there, and he's a good quarterback, but he's not Tim Tebow, he's not Cam Newton, he's not a guy that's going to come out here and run for 150 yards and make you look stupid. So I think that there is reason to believe that this game is not going to be just absolute domination, and I hope it's not, because we've seen multiple times when Georgia does that, they beat our eyes out. We go to the next game and we're basically giving up on it too. You go into the next game and you've taken a punch to the gut. You get beat up. You're getting beat like that. You're getting guys hurt. We saw that last year. We get into the Arkansas game and you're working with a really, really sparse crew, and that didn't help us against Arkansas. We're missing a lot of pieces. So I think that's another thing that you've got to try to avoid, is just getting beat up so bad that you end up having a lot of guys on the injured reserve. I think none of us expect us to win this game, barring some catastrophe that Georgia just, oh my gosh, they're like 2011 Florida, where it just seems like every week somebody's getting hurt. But other than that, I don't know. I think that I think we all share the sentiment. Just keep it close, keep it respectful. Don't let it just be where Georgia fans can just hang out and party for the last 2 quarters of the game, and we checked out early where the one side of the stadium is empty. So I think, I think that's kind of what it's sad. It's sad to be like that. It's really painful to say that because I'd like to beat Georgia because I live
Amen.
here. Like I think that's the one thing that hurts the most, is because it's like, this is a game where we shouldn't be like this. I don't care how good they are. I don't know. Even LSU and Auburn, when Alabama was at the peak, they didn't feel like this going into these games. They still played these games, but us, it just feels like a lost cause.
Yeah. I hate this game so bad, but I live in Georgia and I've got too many relatives that are Georgia fans. But enough of that. So we get out of Jacksonville, and obviously then we get our first taste of one of the new SEC opponents. Man, we have to travel to Austin the next weekend. Now this game could go multiple different ways, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it because it's a lot of unknown. We do know Texas is very talented. Obviously, they were a playoff team last year, but this is their first year in the SEC, and I think a lot of people are taking that wait and see approach with Texas as far as how are they going to respond to playing in an SEC schedule where, you're getting punched in the mouth weekly by solid opponents. Now, the one thing that I think does obviously work against us in this is you play Georgia the week before, you're going to get beat up. I mean, what's going to happen in that game. Then you got to spin around, travel, to another time zone, which is not that big of a deal, but obviously, how it is with us right now. That game's set as a noon game. We'll see if that changes by then, obviously, depending on how we look and they look.
It's set.
Is it set?
Yep. It's not even an option game.
Oh, okay. Yep. I see that now. It's not. It's a hard set. So once again, and there's another thing, and you can say that doesn't matter and all that, but tell me a noon game where we came out of the gate and looked super great in recent memory, because I swear we sleep in and never get going until the late second, early third quarter. But I think most of us would also chalk this one up as probably a loss as of today. But this is where what CJ says about this, this is a very fluid situation is you have to see how Texas is going to respond first to SEC play. Daniel, you agree?
I agree to a point to seeing how they respond to SEC play. But let me tell you the 2 weeks before we face Texas, because sometimes that will give us an insight. During our bye before Georgia, they play Vanderbilt.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
The week we
Scrimmage.
play, yeah. The week we play Georgia, they're off. So essentially, they've got Oklahoma, for better or worse, 2 bye weeks, and then they play us. So not
They're
a
going to be
great,
about as fresh as you can be at that point of the season.
yeah. So we drew the short straw. I think I saw messaging or commenting on Dave Waters' Twitter where I said, I looked at it the last few years and put in like my season preview, and there are times that we didn't take advantage of, the schedule working for us in that way. Hopefully the flip side happens, and maybe Texas from 2 straight bye weeks is a little more lax than they should be coming into the game. Especially with us coming off of Georgia. Again, hopefully that's a good game, but it is a tough turnaround. I would not be mad, if we lost this game again with the, we've got to keep this close. If we're on the way up, show us the hope, show us that we're competing with the top teams. Right now, I think that's what many people just want to see is the ability to compete so we can see that giant step that most teams take by year 2 or year 3. We can see the giant step up, year 4 coming. But again, early kick, we don't usually look good, but it'll be an interesting first trip to DKR for us.
Yeah, you're right on about that. Like this just with them having their schedule set up that way. But the big point that you made is don't get blown out, man. You got to be competitive.
Yep.
They're a talented team. CJ, any other thoughts?
No, I mean they do lose. Devondre Sweat's not there. You lost Worthy. You've lost AD Mitchell. You won't have Cedric Baxter. So there are
Valid
some
points.
pieces. There are some pieces that they are missing, but they did add Isaiah Bond, and you've got Jared Gibson, who's a talented back. Even though he's a freshman, he's going to be there. And then of course Quinn Ewers, who's one of the better quarterbacks in college. Depending on what draft you look at, he's a first round pick. So there's definitely some things that they're missing from year over. They did lose a good bit of talent, but I think you're playing at Texas in their stadium at noon the week after you just went through hell against Georgia. It doesn't set up good for us. I think again we're still there. We'd rather just if we could just go and compete, just don't get blown out. I think that's still the hope because there's still a lot left in the schedule you got to play for. If you get psyched out by Georgia and Texas, and then it doesn't get any easier. So just make sure that you go and you compete and don't look like you never played football before.
Wes, any other thoughts?
Yeah, Stark is a good play caller. I'm not thinking with Ewers. I don't think their offense is going to take a step back. I'm interested to see how their defense is playing at that point in time in the season. Their defense has not been really that good. I want to see how their defense looks early in the season coming into that game, and maybe it'll be a shootout type game. I don't know. But Stark is a good play caller, so I think that game. I just don't want us to be blown out, and that may be a game Napier has to push the gas and say, "Hey, Graham, go ahead and sling it. You're gonna have to sling it because they're putting up points. They're loud. It's early. Let's sling it, and hopefully he let the reins off Merce, and that might be a game where Merce throws 40 pass attempts or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. So, all right. I think we'd all pretty much agree at this point. We're hopefully our scenario is we're sitting at 6-3 going into the final 3 games of the season. The next 2 at home, and then of course at Florida State away. So obviously, hey, my dogs don't like me talking about Florida State, as you can tell. All right. So you get LSU after Texas. LSU comes to town, and I think everyone kind of thinks right now LSU is one of these games that you should be able to steal. I wouldn't say steal; it's at home. You should be able to win. You're in year 3. You Jaden Daniels isn't walking out of that tunnel. Baby Nuss, he's got some ability, and I don't doubt that. And LSU still has talent on that roster, but we've seen that defense be atrocious for a few years now. So you can score on them, or you should be able to. And if the defense is improved at all, then I think this is a game that you absolutely have to get the W in. And I'm kind of going to group these next two home games, and then we'll talk about Florida State at the end. And then obviously Ole Miss comes to town. And you got to feel like Ole Miss at this point is probably going to be either made it or broke it. Lane teams seemingly toe that line where they're like, either there's a lot of pieces there. They went out in the portal and got a lot of pieces, but do those pieces actually go together is going to be a big question. Obviously, Dart has some talent. Lane can call some plays, but does he come into the swamp and he try to show off, or is he even trying to audition for a job? Some would speculate to. Can we get the best of him on that day? Now, of all the ranked teams on our preseason schedule, I think Ole Miss is one of those that you also really have a good chance at home, and this is another noon game. But that might work out bad for them. They're coming across the timeline there, and then they're having to get up a little early for them. So these are two games that you've got to split without a shadow of a doubt. But there's a really good chance here that you can get both of these games. Daniel, what do you think about this block of two games?
Oh, man. I'm definitely on the you've got to – I wasn't on this originally, but I'm definitely on the you've got to steal this LSU game. You've not beaten LSU since 2018. Last year, you made it a game, and they had Jaden Daniels, 2 first-round receivers, tons of talent that they don't have anymore.
In a night game at LSU.
Right. And, if you can do that last year and now you're returning everything, and if you've portaled correctly, brought in the right pieces, this is the transition year for LSU. You've got to catch them at home, and that might be a night game in the swamp. And so
that one's locked in it. Nope. Yeah, it's a flex. Sorry. My schedule is I don't have my glasses on. I'm gonna take the L there.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's 3:30 or 8. I haven't seen what it's up against.
I see it now. Yeah.
Yeah, and whether it's 3:30 or 8, you're gonna have a raucous crowd. Again, third-year coach, and I've brought that up. Show that us in year 3 that you can do what these other coaches have built, especially when you have a guy like Brian Kelly who brought in half the roster year 1 because they only had 40 people, and we're not going to compare year 1s or anything. But because of that, he front loaded, years 1, 2 with Daniels and some of these guys, where now you've kind of backloaded for a few years and you've built. So it's coming to a head. You've got to pull it, especially when you don't have, I don't think Nussmeier's a superstar quarterback. He could be solid, but take advantage of that at home. As far as the Ole Miss game, it really will depend on where Ole Miss is at that point. One advantage that we do have is they faced Georgia the week before. So they may be beat up coming into the swamp. Now, granted, they could still have something to play for, and that's what's going to be interesting about this Lane Kiffin game. I do think they're more dangerous than some Gator fans give them credit for, and I think they're less dangerous than others give them way too much credit. So we will see how they are. Like you said, the pieces, we got to see how it fits together. If it fits together well, this is a dangerous game. If it doesn't, well, we've got to steal this. But definitely, like you said, 1-1. I would rather have winning records against rivals, to be honest. And since LSU's been lumped into that, and I would love to pull that off against them, especially with the long losing streak. But both are definitely in play.
For sure. Wes, what are your thoughts on these two games?
Yeah, I'll start with the LSU game. It's going to be decided by 7 points or less because it always is. That's and they have gotten to the point where they're our Tennessee. Like, seems like we should win these games, and then somehow they pull out. It's the opposite for us when we feel like we pull out the games against Tennessee. I'm sitting there like Tennessee fans, like what is going to happen for LSU to pull this thing out, because they always do. Ever since Les Miles with the fake field goal and all that stuff that he did. I
And
mean,
the
it's like that game playing them
fake
is
punt
crazy.
and everything else.
I
Yeah.
mean, we had the goal line stop with some years back. I think with who was McElwain, and the Tyree Cleveland touchdown go route. I mean, that game is going to be decided by 7 points less. I know Dane was talking about rival. They are a rival for us because of how close these games always are. It's going to be decided by 7 points or less, in my opinion, because it always is. To you guys' point about Lane, I'm hoping that Lane ego gets in the way. He'll go for it on fourth down. He shouldn't. He just does it because not just us, Alabama, Georgia, whoever he's playing. He'll do something. I'm like, why are you doing that, Lane? Just to because it is who he is as a coach. So maybe they get beat up against Georgia, like you guys were talking about, and we may be able to pull that out. But I'm with you, Hurst. I think LSU though is our second easiest game. I think Florida State is the first game that I think we should be able to beat Florida State, and I have LSU second as far as that back half stretch with Texas and Georgia and Ole Miss and LSU and Florida State. I think Florida State is the easiest one, and then LSU will be number two.
All right, CJ, what do you think?
Yeah, LSU is. It seems like they're on a downward slide compared, to comparison to where they were Brian Kelly's first year. You make the SEC championship, and the next year you do a really good job. You win a Heisman Trophy, but the defense isn't there. You're losing a lot of games that you probably should win. There's just a lot of little things with LSU that just don't feel right. Now you're coming into the third year where now it's who has Brian Kelly recruited? Who are those guys? What did they turn into? So there's a transition. You're not talking about two first round wide receivers and a first round quarterback. This is Nussmeyer and the talent that LSU does have. They've got talented players. They've got CJ Daniels from Liberty. They added in the offseason a guy that we were after, so he's going to be a talented wide receiver to look for. But I think that LSU is definitely a winnable game. You're playing at home. You've got to beat LSU. I feel the same way about LSU right now that I do Kentucky. Not to the sense of we should always beat LSU, but we got to sometimes beat LSU. We can't just look at that game and say, oh, well, we're going to lose that one because it's close. There hasn't been a game where we've just been outclassed by LSU. Not in recent memory. We've lost, but there hasn't been these games where they're just beating us to death. So I think this is a game that you should win. Ole Miss is another one that I don't know. I don't know how to feel about the Ole Miss game until we get to it.
Yeah.
We've talked about multiple times of having a team full of mercenaries like Ole Miss has, where you've got a bunch of guys that weren't recruited by you. They didn't choose to go play Ole Miss out of high school. They've now gone there because a lot of them feel like this is their best shot to get in the NFL. If Ole Miss is losing a lot and Ole Miss has come off the rails and they've lost a few games, I don't know where their mindset's going to go. I feel like, we know what Princely is. We know how his mindset works. So he's a guy that you can kind of point to. You're talking about a guy like Juice Wells. He's another guy that doesn't have the super great mindset of wanting to stick it out. It's fluid. I think that if Ole Miss is running and they're a machine, it's going to be hard to beat that team. But if they've got a few losses under their belt and you've got guys starting to look at, I came here to get to the NFL. I can't really get there if I'm hurt. So maybe I'm not, worried about this. If national championship is out the window, the SEC championship is out the window, I'm curious to see what Ole Miss's mindset is going into that game in Florida. Where are they at mentally? What are they doing then? We've seen Lane Kiffin's teams burn out before. The last time I remember Lane Kiffin having a team with this much hype behind it was at USC. When you come back, you brought a guy back who's the de facto number one pick in the draft at one point, and then everything just kind of went downhill from there. Preseason number one, and it just went, fell apart. So can Lane buck that trend? That's something we're going to have to see.
Yep. And real quick, I totally screwed something up when I said they played Georgia the week before. Apparently, they have a bye so late in the season, it's between Georgia and us. So that is my bad. I know someone's going to correct me in the comments before we get to me issuing my correction.
Everybody has a bye.
It is what
before
it
they
is,
play us.
man. You look at these schedules. We're doing this sometimes on the fly. We don't have, we're not on
Georgia
3.
has
We
a
don't
bye.
have. We don't
Everybody
have
has a
4
bye.
computer screens in front of us. Yeah, I CJ, you brought up a good point. I mean, we know one guy in that Ole Miss locker room, and we know what his mentality is. And this is the new landscape of college football. If things don't go right the first 6, 7 games, and you're looking at possibly being on the outside, not necessarily looking in on the college playoff picture, you're going to see some guys start to possibly say, you know what, I'm going to save myself. Because at that point, I mean, their resume's on tape. It is what it is.
The thing that helps these teams with that, though, to a quick point, is the 12-team playoff. It gives
And that's what I'm
like some
saying, though. But by this point, you know how close you are to being in or out of that. Like if Ole Miss is split like 8-4 or whatever their record would be at that point, they're not playing for that. Now, if they're what is it? No, they that would be their 11th game. So if they're coming in and they're 8-2 or whatever, they're gonna be fighting their tails off. But anyway, so let's get to the Seminoles. Obviously, like we said at the beginning, the Seminoles kick it off this weekend, and I'm going to be watching this game very closely because I'm not bought in on this Seminole team like the fan base of theirs is. We've seen a lot of tape of DJ Onomatopoeia over the years, and and we know. I don't think that he's one of those guys that all of a sudden is going to become this unbelievable, just reformed quarterback. He is what he is. It's just, you're not going to sell me on that. That's a lot of talent was lost off of that team between Verse and Wilson and Coleman. And, obviously they've got some good pieces coming back. They got a good running back room. And they've had some good players in the recruiting classes, and obviously Norvell is pretty solid in the portal. But these are all brand, new pieces to a puzzle, and you got to fit them in. I was looking at their defensive depth chart, and I was like, outside of Azaria Thomas, I was like, I don't know a lot of these guys. So I'm going to be watching this game Saturday and seeing what they really bring to the table, because I don't care if this game's in Tallahassee. That setting doesn't really faze me, and I don't think it really phases us when we play there that much either. I think this FSU game is the back half. You got to win this game. You can't lose to FSU 3 years in a row and in year 3 of your program. Daniel, what's your thoughts on the FSU game?
Well, can't have a losing record this year against rivals. And I would also say that FSU game, people talk about their most hated rivals. I think it was CJ talked about, growing up and you just go to Jacksonville and beat Georgia. I know you and I have talked about this before. So for me, my Georgia really disdain isn't quite as high. It's getting there. But for me, FSU growing up, living in Florida, and they seem to have our number most of the 90s. For me, this is a game you've got to win. Much less we've played them close the last 2 years. Probably should have beat them if we could just tackle. 2 years. 2 years ago, I mean, we gave up 2 touchdowns where they could have been field goals or less if we just completed the tackle in the backfield of Jordan Travis instead of letting him run down inside the 1. And then last year, of course, we're up 12-0, and then the game comes apart at home. At some point, you've got to beat your rivals, and then this is a big transition year. Just like LSU, you've got a lot of transition. That's how I feel. Now, I kind of flipped from what CJ had, where he had FSU as the easiest LSU as the second easiest. And the only reason why I have them flipped is just the home and away difference between the two. Doak is under construction, so it's not quite going to be the same Doak crowd, at least as numbers this year, but it will be an interesting thing to see. But you've got to beat your rivals again as they're in transition year, and you're in a year that you've built to with his talent. So send us off on a good note. Even if everything goes wrong, and it's a bad year, do what Zook did. Go out being carried off that field by your players. I was there then, and hopefully I'll be there this year. And hopefully, we end the season and we're looking much higher than that. But I'm just saying, if somehow worst case scenario happens, still take that FSU and give Florida the bragging rights for, the next 365 days until you play again.
Absolutely. CJ, I know you're over there in Tallahassee North.
Yeah, I was about to say I hate Florida State with everything in my body. I live 20 minutes from Tallahassee. This is, I walk into when I went to high school, I walk into my high school and I see Charlie Ward's jersey and his Heisman Trophy when I walk in the door. That was nothing new to me. I don't like Florida State. I don't like anything about Florida State. If Florida State played Russia, I'd probably cheer for Russia. So there's no love there. This is a team that has gone through a ton of transition, and I think that it's kind of confusing to me how that's not getting really talked about. You've lost the bulk of your team. The team that we saw show up and play in the Orange Bowl is closer to what we're going to get this year with a few added pieces. But are we talking about some really guys that are game changers that Florida State added? I can't think of one. DJU is serviceable at best. I saw someone make a comment that says, "Well, Florida fans, they had Graham Mertz and he came in and he did okay. He did better than he did at Wisconsin." I get that, but if DJU had gone to Oregon State and lit it up, then we're having a different conversation. But he went to Oregon State, played lesser competition than what he was even playing in the ACC, and didn't do too hot. We saw Oregon State take a step back with DJ compared to where they played us in the Las Vegas Bowl. So I think that Florida State has a lot of guys they brought in that are talented on paper, guys that have been buried in a depth chart for Alabama, for Georgia. Even they bring in they bring in Rich. He's going to be their start right guard. We know what he is. There's just a lot of unknown. They've got some good players coming in. I like Cam Davis. They got him out of Daugherty County. He's a heck of a running back. He's a stud. He's going to be a guy for them. They've got some wide receiver pieces that you talk about, like Destin Hill and those guys that can be great players. But again, this is their first real year. We don't know much about what Mike Norvell has recruited because we haven't seen them play. And even the ones that he did recruit, a lot of them that were more talented have left. They didn't stick around because they got their spot taken. So I think that Florida State is a game that you should win. I think you should win this game. I think that on paper, I like Florida's team more than I like Florida State. I think that Florida State is getting way more credit than I expected in the season. I understand the Miami hype. They've recruited so well for the last few years. Cam Ward is a guy who was, talked about as an NFL prospect quarterback. I understand that. Damian Martinez is a heck of a running back. But Florida State lost the meat of that team. And like I said, what we saw play in Miami against Georgia is closer to what we're going to get this year. Like I said, I don't see the transfers they brought in being that much of a difference. It just, to me, there was nobody that I saw that transferred to Florida State and said, "Wow, that's a get. Wow, that's a guy." But hey, we'll see. I mean, this is a long season. We're talking November. So a lot of things could change between here and there.
Wes, how you feeling about FSU game?
Lincoln Riley used to coach Oklahoma. I'm going somewhere with this, right? When he went to USC, who did he bring first? His quarterback?
Mm-hmm.
Oregon State coach. Did he go to Michigan State?
Sure.
He did. Why didn't he take DJ a bunch of letters?
He took his backup quarterback.
Exactly. That's my point. So if your coach doesn't take you to to his next destination, that should tell you something about the guy that he has. Lincoln Riley took Caleb Williams with him. Why didn't the Oregon State coach, when he went to Michigan State, take DJ a bunch of letters with him? He's not that guy. So I'm looking at like CJ said. That's why I looked at them like they're the easiest win as far as that back stretch. I don't believe in DJ. I don't. To you guys' point, you guys said everything. I don't need to rehash it, but they lost so many players from off that team. They're what the Ole Miss is doing this year. What Florida State did last year. Hire a bunch of mercenaries to take you over the top. It worked out well for Florida State until Jordan Travis got hurt, but it worked out well for them. But those guys are gone now, and you can tell they were mercenaries because they didn't play for the championship game. I mean, they didn't play for that bowl game to set a record for Florida State. I think that might have been the most wins in a season for them. So if you don't love your school, because you were transferred in, that just tells me a lot about your culture and what you have going on there. To me, if I was at the University of Florida and we wasn't able to play for a championship or the playoffs, I would have still played because I love the University of Florida. That's the yin and the yang and the good and the bad when you hire mercenaries to come in to play for your school, because when you do that, they don't really care about the school. It's all about them and it's about self. So Florida State going to take a step back. Their quarterback is not Jordan Travis. Unfortunately for us, he's not very, very mobile. I saw a lot of him here in South Carolina playing at Clemson. He's a statue. He's a one-read guy. He can't read the field very well. And I just harp on the point of his coach took a job at Michigan State and didn't recruit him over there. That should tell you not enough about what he thought about his quarterback.
Yeah, I'm very anxious to see what Mike Norvell is without Jordan Travis. I mean, obviously we've seen what he was with him, and we've seen what he was for the few games that he didn't have him last season. Now, I mean, I'm going to throw the bowl game out the window. Obviously, I know they had a bunch of guys out, but that team, when Jordan Travis wasn't there against us, even if Graham Mertz plays that game, I don't think anybody debates that we win that football game. I mean, I don't think it's even remotely a debate. But that's here nor there. You can't play the ifs and buts game. It is what it is. The record shows we lost. That's it. We move on. But you've got to win this game. You've got to close out this season. There's a 2-game. You've got to at least grab 2 games on the back half of that schedule that we've talked about, and this is one of them. And then you've got to split. It could, but I'm not even worried about that right now. I'm just saying between LSU, Ole Miss, you got to split one of those games, preferably LSU, just because of like we've harped on. You can't just keep losing to LSU. And the FSU factor, you can't lose to FSU 3 years in a row, just like you can't lose to Kentucky 3 years in a row. You've got to get some of these rivalry wins under your belt and establish some good faith with the fan base and the boosters and the people that matter at the end of the day. If you want to get the boosters to get behind you and say, all right, I see the vision. You're a few players away from really turning this thing into something. Now that I see that you beat an FSU, you beat Miami, and possibly LSU, you beat those 3 teams, I got it. I see where you're going with this thing now. And we got Lagway next year. We still got Trey Wilson in the clip. You've got some other young wide receivers you've recruited. The running back room is strong. The defense is only getting better. LJ McCray and company. I mean, there's a lot of young guys on this team, even though like we had 16 guys named to the Senior Bowl list today. A lot of those guys are transfers. The real bulk of the talent is the guys that you've brought in the last couple of classes. But you've got to make the headway this year to buy yourself that time. And possibly, as we've spoken about over the last month and a half, talking about recruiting, you win some of these games, you're going to flip some of these recruits that we've been talking about or going other places because they're like, I don't know if that staff's going to be there for me to play for. But you go out there and do some of that and you beat FSU to end the season. Maybe someone like Solomon Thomas, the 5-star offensive lineman from Jacksonville, is like, you know what? I'd rather be on that team. They're going places. I see the vision. I want to block for DJ Lagway. You know what I mean? So I think right now, I think the ceiling for me is 9-3. I think the floor obviously 7-5, but I think 8-4 is kind of where I'm sitting right now. Daniel, what's your thought?
Well, I guess for my desire ceiling and floor, I'd say 9-3, 7-5 is fair. But as far as what I can see, based on everything we've seen body of work up until this point, I could see, and this is better than last year. Last year I was saying I could see 3-9 up through 9-3. I actually ran across one of those tweets. This year I think the floor I see is 5-7 up through 9-3, just depending on if we see some of those.
I was saying the acceptable floor.
Oh, acceptable floor. Okay.
Yeah, my fault. I should have specified that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 7-5 is what I believe your acceptable floor is. I personally feel like 7-5 is probably where we end up. I'd like to be higher, and I wouldn't be surprised if we got higher. But until I see it, it's kind of like, we're saying something weird always happens against LSU, or we've got to get, the Kentucky monkey off our back, or, and we could do one or not the other, or we could have, a toss-up game against Miami that goes the wrong way. So until I see reason to believe better than 7-5, I do think we do hit the acceptable floor, at least of 7-5, with the open possibility where we could get up to 9-3. And I think within the first 4 or 5 weeks, we'll know where that is.
Absolutely. CJ, what's your feeling on this?
I mean, honestly, I think the team has a ceiling of 10-2. I think on paper you can win 10 games. I don't think they will, but I could see it. I don't see any more. I don't think you win 11 or 12 games. That's just ridiculous. I think you can win. If we're talking 9-3, I don't think 10-2 is ridiculous. I think Georgia, Texas are the two de facto losses, and then you've got 10 games that you feel like you could win if things go your way. The problem on that, the backside of that, I can see the floor being 4-8. So it's a tough one. I in a perfect world, I think we go 8-4. I wouldn't be super happy about it, but 7-5 is okay. You maybe twist my arm on 6-6. I don't really like the sound of that right now, but I'd have to see it. I think that 7-5 is your record. If Billy Napier wants to have a job, I think it needs to be a 7-5 at least. If you can do better than that, awesome. It's only gravy from there. I think that at least it would buy you a couple of seasons into DJ Lagway if you find a way to win 7 or 8 games, or you can go 7-5 and win your bowl game, go 8-5. I think we're okay with that. I think 8-5 is the record, right? You go 8-4, lose the bowl game, 7-5, win the bowl game. Just depends. I think that there's a lot of variables here, but I think we're all to the point now where, as a fan base, we can collectively say, if we're gonna do it, you got to start this year, because if it doesn't get any better this year, I think we're all out. I think we're all out of Billy. I think that it's done then. I think we've given him more than enough time. I know on this show we've been more than fair to Billy Napier. Fair that a lot of the other pundits out there have been. This is the year that it's got to come together. You've got to. I don't care. Don't tell me about the labor. Just show me the baby. At this point, I think that's where we're at.
Yeah. Before you give your take, where you said about that possible 4-8 situation is what I was getting at when I started earlier and said, if you're 4-3 coming out of that first 7 games, you could see the wheels go off, because depending on those losses and how you look, the emotional state might, the buy-in might not be what it was at kickoff next weekend by that point, and you could start seeing some things go south real fast if you're not careful. Wes, 12-0?
Nah. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. But if you look at with everything, and I'm gonna start with this. If you look at ESPN, you look at social media, look at everything that's going on. As you started this podcast, you said everybody's saying this is the hardest schedule they've ever seen. One of the hardest, or at least top three. This is like crazy. How does Florida do all this? I'm with CJ. I can see the 4 win and I can see the 10 win if things fall away and vice versa. You talked about acceptable. Acceptable is 7-5. I would accept 7-5 with the schedule. That means some teams are good. Maybe we lost some close games. I would accept it. I won't be happy. That doesn't mean I'll be happy for Florida Gator fans. I'm not saying because I accept 7-5 that our standards have dropped. That's just the reality of maybe
You've got to look
schedule.
confident in your losses.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I will go to 9-3 as what I will predict that because this is what I feel, this is what I think we should have, and I think that's a playoff berth. The reason why I brought that point up at the beginning of what I just said, everybody in the country said this is the hardest schedule ever. People were like, well, 2 loss teams will get in the playoff. If we lose, we have 3 losses on our schedule. We're in the playoff, and Billy is safe. 9 wins. He's safe even if he doesn't make the playoff. But 9-3 will get you in the playoff with that schedule. It's been talked about on Sports Center, SEC Network, social media. Everybody's like, wow, I can't believe. Look at Clemson and you look at Miami's schedule. It's garbage compared to what we have. I don't care if they have 1 or 2 losses compared to what we have.
Is garbage compared to ours.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I think 9-3 is where we will land. This is me wishful thinking. I'm thinking 9-3, but I can see the 10 wins as CJ talked about it. I can see the 4 if the wheels fall off and we lose Miami and then Kentucky does it to us again. Some stupid crap. I can see all those things happening. It's just crazy because there's a lot of coin flip games and a lot of year 3, second year quarterback. Your coach is here. You brought a lot of good players back that should overcome that thought process that I have, but the PTSD in me is saying, "Hey, don't get your hopes too high."
At the end of the day, it's all show me, and I've said this over and over again. I've heard all the reasoning, and I talked about it at the top of the show. We've heard Billy needs patience. He needs to get his guys. He needs, then the guys were too young, and needed to build depth. All of that is out the window now. You've done it all. You have depth. You have youth. You have older guys. You've portaled. You've recruited. This is your team. You have constructed. So all the excuses are out the window. You've addressed coaching issues that you thought you would run into for better or worse. This is your staff. You've made the hire. Guys have gone out. You fired 2 guys. You brought in 2 guys to replace them. A guy got a promotion. You got Roberts in here, and people seem to really think Roberts is going to make a huge difference, and I don't disagree at all. But it's all talking points at this point. I want to see get on the field and all this stuff you've hyped and said, you prove. Because if we lose to Miami, and I'm not saying we are, I'm just saying
right.
If you lose to Miami and you hit that post-game press conference and your comments are, well, there's still some things we could do better, and those mistakes were all controllable, and it's all relative to the growth process of the team, nobody's going to hear it. We've heard all that. It's regurgitated at this point. You've got to say that was, either you win the game and you say, that's what we've been working for. This is the standard of Florida Gator football. Or you lose the game and you say it's completely unacceptable. We're going to go out there and go on a run. I mean,
I'm laughing because I'm thinking about seeing 10 men on special teams. I'll break my TV about seeing 10 men on special teams.
It's pretty neat, right?
Everything that we've heard for the last couple of years that has been a shortcoming and been, that's correctable. This is correctable. It's that we can fix that by doing this. You've done it all. Yeah. So I can't hear any more spins about, that was correctable. No, you should have corrected it. We're here. Yeah. We're at that point. All the corrections are made. This is your team. This is your year to prove that you were working towards something. You can't be 500 again. You just can't do it. Because you're going to lose the boosters, you're going to lose the fans, and at that point, what do you have?
John Morgan.
Yeah, John Morgan for the people.
Outlaw, that's all.
I
All right.
upgraded my TV.
Well, guys, that's it for our season preview. If you've stuck around to this point, an hour and 45 minutes into the show, and we hope you have, or maybe you zipped ahead forward, we appreciate you for hanging with us, guys. As always, these are our opinions. Your opinion could be completely different, and that's fine. It's okay. That's what differentiates us as people and humans. Leave your score prediction in the comments below. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us, brother man. It was a pleasure having you on, and hopefully it won't be the last time. Tell the people where they can find you and your show.
You can find me on X at Gator Podcast, and then if you search Gator Truth Podcast, you'll be able to find me on YouTube. I have my regular show where I do some analysis, and my regular show usually drops on Fridays. Once the season starts, there'll be a review show and a show to preview. Usually they're about 30 minutes long, and currently I have a side series going, which Hirsch was awesome enough to be my first recorded guest, but episode 2 called Huddle Up Gators, where I take a look at, or I bring in different Gator fans and we hear about their fandom to help, build community in Gator Nation, because you never know, what connections you have. And sometimes it's great to go down memory lane. Like I know Hirsch and I, when we spoke, we found out like we had similarities with our grandfathers, or my most recent episode with my friend Vari from law school at Gale157 on Twitter. And we find out that we both have an affinity for Chris Leak that maybe not too many people have. So definitely check that out. And thank you guys for having me on. It's been a blast.
Hopefully you and Vari don't eat your collard greens the same.
No, not too much.
Oh, man. Old Vari and the collard greens, man. He's the most Twitter famous person I know. CJ, buddy, what you got for us before we get out of here?
Just keep it short. You guys know where to find us. You know where to find us on X and Facebook and the YouTube, and leave the comments and like. Tell us your score predictions below. Of course, we got our link with Alma Mater. Check out their stuff. They got cool stuff dropping every day. Use our code with Florida Victorious. Go over there to help Florida Gator athletes if you feel led to do that. That's something that fits in your budget. Understand times are hard, so do what you can. Use our code there. We really appreciate you guys supporting us creators. College football kicks off this weekend. I understand it's those people in the panhandle, but it's college football, so
Panhandlers.
we're there.
Ramblin' Wreck.
We're finally there. Hey, yeah, we're all big Georgia Tech fans on Saturday. So,
I love those engineers.
We'll join in. That's right. Ramblin' Wreck. But thank you guys so much for supporting us. We really appreciate you, and we love talking to you guys every week in the Facebook chats and things like that. Check us out on Twitter and conversation there, of course. And also to be on the lookout this weekend for a possible commitment. We got Deshaun Montgomery coming up soon, so we'll see what he does. That's a big point. We'll hopefully get to talk about that next week.
Absolutely. All right, Wes, take us home, man.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. Make sure, as the guys have said, hit that like, hit that subscribe, make a comment. Let me know if you guys who's going to be at the game next week. I'll be down there week 1 versus Miami. Daniel's already said he's going to be there, so I hope to see some of you guys out there, maybe tailgating before you guys go in. I'm going to be watching Clemson beat Georgia for a little while before I get there, so give me some time before I get there, because I'm going to be rooting for Clemson to take down Georgia, as I always predict Georgia to lose. But this time next week, guys, we'll be prepping for Miami and talking about that game in depth, and then hopefully talking about a commitment. So thank you guys as always, and as always, go Gators.
Go Gators.
Go Gators, baby.
Gators.